The mining colony of Kepler 442b was dying. Captain Sarah Chen pressed her face against the viewport of the emergency shelter, watching the crimson storm rage across the barren landscape. The atmospheric processors had failed 3 days ago, and their distress beacon had been screaming into the void ever since. 47 souls trapped on a world that was slowly choking them to death. Any response from Earth Command? Marcus Rivera, her chief engineer, asked through the crackling comm system. The electromagnetic interference from the storm was getting worse by the hour. Nothing. We're too far out. Even if they received our signal, rescue would take months. Sarah's voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly as she checked the atmospheric readings again. Oxygen levels were dropping faster than projected. The children were the worst part. 12 colonist families had brought their kids to what was supposed to be humanity's newest success story. Now those same children huddled in the main shelter, their parents trying to maintain brave faces while calculating how many hours they had left. Dr. Elena Vasquez emerged from the medical bay, her expression grim. We've got maybe 18 hours of breathable air if we cut rations to the absolute minimum. The CO2 scrubbers are operating at 20% efficiency. Outside, the storm intensified. The mining equipment scattered across the settlement groaned and sparked as debris pelted the structures. 3 years of backbreaking work to establish this outpost, and it would all be for nothing. Sarah thought about the messages she'd never get to send home. The promises she'd made to her sister about returning for her daughter's graduation. That's when the sky split open. A massive ship descended through the raging storm, its hull gleaming with an opalescent sheen that seemed to bend light around it. The vessel was unlike anything in human databases, shaped like a graceful teardrop, with flowing curves that suggested both organic growth and advanced engineering. As it landed in the settlement's central plaza, the storm seemed to part around it. The colonists pressed against the shelter windows in stunned silence. First contact protocols flashed through Sarah's mind, but survival instincts overrode everything else. She activated the external speakers. Unknown vessel, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Mining Consortium. We are in immediate distress. Our life support systems have failed. A melodic voice responded, speaking perfect English with an accent that seemed to flow like water. Captain Chen, we are the Zephyrians of the vessel Stellar Harmony. We detected your distress and have come to offer assistance. May we approach your shelter? The airlock hissed open, and 3 beings emerged. They stood roughly 7 feet tall, with elegant elongated features and skin that shifted color like pearls in sunlight. Their movements were fluid, almost dance-like as they approached carrying what appeared to be atmospheric equipment. I am Navigator Lyrelai, the lead figure announced, their voice somehow conveying both authority and genuine concern. Your atmospheric crisis can be resolved, but we must act quickly. Within hours, the Zephyrians had not only repaired the atmospheric processors, but enhanced them beyond their original specifications. They worked with technology that seemed to blend seamlessly with human systems, their devices humming with harmonious frequencies that actually improved the existing equipment. As the first truly clean breath of air in days filled the shelter, Sarah found herself face to face with beings who had saved her people without asking for anything in return. The children were laughing again, playing games with small Zephyrian devices that projected beautiful light patterns in the air. Why? Sarah asked Lyrely as they watched the colonists emerge from the shelter into the now clear evening air. You don't know us. We can't offer you anything of value. Lyrely's expression shifted, their skin taking on warmer hues. In our philosophy, all sentient life has value. Your species shows remarkable resilience and ingenuity. We believe you will contribute greatly to the galactic community one day. That night, the Zephyrians shared their technology freely. They showed the humans how to modify their equipment for better efficiency, taught them techniques for atmospheric management that would prevent future disasters, and even left behind several advanced devices with detailed instructions. Before departing, Lyrelai placed a small crystalline device in Sarah's hands. This is a communication beacon. Should your people ever need assistance, or should you wish to contact us, simply activate it. The Zephyrian Collective believes in fostering friendship across the stars. As the stellar harmony lifted off into the dawn sky, Every human on Kepler 442b stood watching. They had been saved by strangers who asked for nothing, who shared their advanced knowledge freely, and who treated them as equals despite the vast technological gap between their civilizations. Sarah clutched the beacon, feeling its warm pulse against her palm. She didn't know it then, but she was holding something that would change the course of galactic history. The Zephyrians had just made friends with humanity, and humans never forget a favor. The mining colony thrived in the following months, becoming one of the most successful human settlements beyond the solar system. Every colonist carried the memory of that terrible night and the miraculous salvation that followed. They told their stories to every visitor, every supply ship crew, every new colonist who arrived. Word spread through human space like wildfire. An alien species had saved human lives without hesitation, had shared technology freely, had treated them with respect and kindness. In a universe where most species barely acknowledged each other's existence, the Zephyrians had shown unprecedented generosity. The Terran government officially designated the Zephyrian Collective as humanity's first and most honored alien ally. Trade agreements followed, cultural exchanges, scientific collaborations. For 50 years, the partnership flourished, bringing prosperity and advancement to both species. But the universe is vast and full of dangers that even the most advanced civilizations cannot always foresee. Admiral Marcus Rivera stood on the bridge of the TCS Endeavour, watching the Zephyrian homeworld of Ethros rotate slowly beneath them. 50 years had passed since that desperate night on Kepler 442b, when he was just a chief engineer. Now he commanded humanity's most advanced exploration fleet, and every ship in his command carried Zephyrian-enhanced technology. The partnership had exceeded everyone's wildest expectations. Zephyrian crystal matrices had revolutionized human computing systems. Their harmonic engineering principles had made human ships faster, more efficient, and incredibly durable. In return, human adaptability and innovation had helped the Zephyrians expand into previously uninhabitable systems. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Zephyrian High Command, reported Lieutenant Commander Park. Navigator Lyrelai is requesting immediate conference. Marcus smiled. Lyrelai had become something of a legend among humans, the alien who first extended the hand of friendship. Over the decades, their relationship had deepened from gratitude to genuine mutual respect. The Zephyrian had even learned to appreciate human humor, though their attempts at jokes often left humans puzzled. The holographic display shimmered to life, revealing Lyrelai's familiar form. But something was wrong. The Zephyrian's usual pearl-like skin coloration was muted, cycling through darker hues that Marcus had learned indicated distress. Admiral Rivera, old friend, Lyrelai began, their melodic voice carrying an undertone of urgency. I bring grave news. Our long-range sensors have detected the approach of the Void Reapers. Marcus felt his blood chill. The Void Reapers were legend throughout this sector of the galaxy, a nomadic civilization that consumed entire star systems for resources. They moved in massive fleets, stripping worlds bare and leaving nothing but dead rock in their wake. Most civilizations that encountered them simply fled to distant stars. How long do we have? Marcus asked. Their advanced scouts will reach the outer systems within 3 standard months. The main fleet follows 6 months behind. Lyrelai's skin shifted to deep purples, a color Marcus had never seen before. Admiral, our combat fleet cannot stand against them. The Reapers have consumed 17 civilizations in the past century. Their ships are built from the bones of dead worlds, powered by technology stolen from a dozen conquered species. Marcus studied the tactical data as it streamed across his displays. The numbers were staggering. The Reaper fleet consisted of over 3,000 vessels, some larger than Earth's moon. Their technology was an amalgamation of everything they had conquered, creating ships that were both terrifyingly effective and utterly alien in design. The Zephyrian Council has made the decision to evacuate, Lyrelai continued. We have prepared colony ships to carry our population to the far reaches of the galaxy. But Admiral, there is something you must know. The Reapers do not stop. They will consume this entire sector, including all human colonies. The weight of the situation settled on Marcus like a crushing gravity field. Humanity had built their entire expansion around this region of space. 43 colonies, mining operations, research stations, and trade routes all centered on the partnership with the Zephyrians. Evacuation would mean abandoning everything they had built together. There has to be another way, Marcus said. Our combined fleets, our technology. Surely we can mount some kind of defense. Lyralay's expression shifted to what Marcus recognized as deep sadness. My friend, the Reapers are not like other enemies. They do not negotiate, they do not retreat, and they do not show mercy. They are entropy given form, the heat death of civilization made manifest. Over the following weeks, both human and Zephyrian leaders struggled with impossible decisions. The Zephyrian evacuation proceeded steadily, their graceful ships carrying refugees to distant stars. But many humans refused to abandon their homes. Entire colonies voted to stay and fight, even knowing the odds. Captain Sarah Chen, now in her 70s but still sharp as a blade, addressed the Colonial Defense Council from Kepler 442b. The Zephyrians saved us once. They've been our friends and partners for 50 years. If they're running, maybe we should listen. But Admiral Jackson, commander of the Terran Defense Force, disagreed. Humanity doesn't run. We've never run. We faced down extinction during the Solar Wars. We survived the Great Plague. We've beaten odds before that seemed impossible. The debate raged for days. Some colonies began evacuation procedures while others reinforced their defenses. The Zephyrians watched with a mixture of admiration and concern as humanity split between pragmatic retreat and defiant resistance. Lyralay made one final visit to Marcus before the last Zephyrian evacuation fleet departed. They met in the observation lounge of the Endeavor, looking out at Ethros one last time. The planet's cities were already dark, their populations safely aboard colony ships heading for distant stars. I wish circumstances were different, Lyralay said, their voice heavy with regret. In another timeline, perhaps our peoples could have stood together against this threat. Marcus placed a hand on the Zephyrian's shoulder, a gesture of friendship that had taken years to perfect, given their different physiologies. You've given us 50 years of friendship, knowledge, and hope. You don't owe us anything more. But we do, Lyralay replied, their skin shifting to warm golden hues. Your species taught us something we had forgotten in our millennia of peaceful existence. You showed us that sometimes the impossible choice is the right choice. That courage is not the absence of fear, but action in spite of it. The Zephyrian handed Marcus a small device, similar to the communication beacon from decades ago but more complex. This contains the complete archives of our technological database. Everything we know, everything we've learned. If humanity survives what's coming, perhaps you can use this knowledge to rebuild something even greater. As the last Zephyrian ship disappeared into hyperspace, Marcus stood alone on the bridge holding the data archive. Around him, human colonies were making their final preparations. Some chose evacuation, others chose to fight, but all of them faced their decision with the quiet determination that had carried humanity from a single world to the stars. The Void Reapers were coming, and soon the galaxy would learn what happened when you threatened humanity's friends. The first sign of the Void Reapers' arrival was the silence. Long-range communication arrays throughout the outer rim simply went dark one by one, creating an expanding sphere of nothingness that crept toward the core systems like a disease. Commander Elena Vasquez stood in the tactical center of Kepler Station, humanity's most advanced defensive platform. Built in the 3 months since the Zephyrian evacuation, the station represented the best of human military engineering enhanced by decades of alien technology. But even she had to admit it felt like building a sandcastle to stop a tsunami. Contact lost with the Rigel Mining Consortium, reported sensor technician Adams, his voice steady despite the implications. That's the 15th installation to go silent in the past week. Elena studied the tactical display, watching the red zones expand across the star map. The Reapers weren't just destroying installations, they were consuming them entirely. Long-range probes sent to investigate the silent zones found nothing, not even debris. It was as if entire installations had simply been erased from existence. Admiral Rivera's fleet is holding position at the Centauri Gate, Adams continued. They're requesting permission to investigate the sensor anomalies in the Rigel system. Denied, Elena said firmly. We stick to the plan. Let them come to us. The plan was humanity's desperate gambit, conceived in the weeks following the Zephyrian evacuation. Rather than flee or attempt to match the Reapers in conventional warfare, humanity would use their greatest advantage, the ability to adapt and innovate under pressure. Every defensive installation had been equipped with experimental weapons based on Zephyrian technology. Human engineering and a healthy dose of scientific recklessness. Dr. James Wong emerged from the weapons lab, his hair disheveled from another sleepless night. The physicist had been working around the clock to perfect their secret weapon, a device that existed at the very edge of theoretical possibility. "How are we looking on the resonance cannons?" Elena asked. "Theoretical models are promising," Wong replied, wiping exhaustion from his eyes. "The Zephyrian harmonic principles combined with our quantum field generators should create a feedback loop that disrupts their energy matrices. But Elena, we've never tested this at full scale. We could be building weapons or elaborate fireworks." That was the reality of humanity's situation. Everything they were attempting was experimental, untested based on 3 months of frantic research and development. The Reapers had centuries of proven conquest behind them. The first visual contact came from the Deep Space Monitoring Station at Proxima. Captain Zhang's voice crackled across subspace, filled with a mixture of awe and terror. "Command, you need to see this. I'm transmitting visual data now." The main display filled with an image that defied comprehension. The Void Reaper fleet moved through space like a living organism, their ships connected by streams of energy that pulsed with malevolent light. Each vessel was unique, clearly constructed from the remains of conquered civilizations. Hull plating bore the distinctive markings of a dozen different species, welded together in configurations that should have been structurally impossible. At the center of the formation was the largest ship any human had ever seen. It stretched nearly 100 kilometers from bow to stern, its surface a patchwork of technologies stolen from across the galaxy. Massive energy collectors jutted from its hull like the ribs of some prehistoric beast, while weapon arrays clustered around its forward sections like compound eyes. "My God," whispered Wong, "they're not just ships, they're monuments to everything they've destroyed." Elena studied the formation, her tactical mind automatically calculating trajectories and force dispositions. But what struck her most was the arrogance of their approach. The Reapers weren't even attempting stealth or tactical positioning. They moved through space with the confidence of predators who had never encountered effective resistance. "All stations, implement Protocol Defiance," Elena announced across the command network. "Let them know we're here." Across human space, defensive installations powered up simultaneously. Kepler Station's massive reactor came online, flooding the surrounding space with so much energy that it briefly outshone the system's star. Defense platforms activated their shields and weapon systems, creating a constellation of defiant lights across the sector. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't running, and they weren't hiding. The Reaper response was immediate and overwhelming. The lead ships of their fleet accelerated toward the human positions, their energy signatures spiking as weapon systems came online. But as they approached, something unexpected happened. The Reapers slowed. For the first time in their recorded history, the Void Reapers paused their advance. Long-range sensors detected massive energy spikes throughout their fleet as they conducted what could only be described as deep scans of the human defenses. "They're analyzing us," Elena realized. They've never seen Zephyrian technology used like this before. Admiral Rivera's voice came across the command channel from his flagship. "All units maintain defensive positions. Do not engage until they enter the kill zone. This is our chance to study them before the real fighting begins." For 3 days, the two fleets faced each other across the void. The Reapers conducted their analysis while humanity made final preparations. During this tense standoff, intercepted communications revealed something crucial about their enemy. The Void Reapers weren't just conquerors. They were collectors. Their ships were museums of extinct civilizations, their technology a patchwork of everything they had consumed. They preserved certain aspects of conquered cultures while discarding others, creating a twisted form of immortality for the civilizations they destroyed but they had never encountered, a species that fought back with stolen technology from a civilization that had escaped them. "Commander," Adams reported, his voice tight with concentration. "The Reaper fleet is moving again. They're coming straight for us." Elena watched the tactical display as hundreds of Reaper ships began their final approach. Their formation was perfect, their weapons charged, their shields at maximum power. They moved with the coordinated precision of a species that had conquered everything they had ever encountered. What they couldn't know was that humanity had spent the past 3 days learning everything about them. Every energy signature, every weapon frequency, every tactical pattern had been recorded and analyzed. The Zephyrian archives contained information about dozens of species the Reapers had conquered, and human scientists had used that data to identify weaknesses that no single civilization could have discovered alone. "All stations, weapons free," Elena announced. "Show them what happens when you threaten our friends." The battle for humanity's survival was about to begin, and the Void Reapers were about to learn their first lesson about human warfare. Humanity fought dirtiest when they were protecting something they loved. The first Reaper attack came like a tsunami of destruction. Energy beams that could crack planetary crusts lanced through space, while projectile weapons fired salvos of crystallized matter at relativistic speeds. The human defensive line should have been obliterated in the opening moments. Instead, something impossible happened. The resonance cannons fired. Dr. Wong's theoretical weapons discharged pulses of harmonic energy that struck the Reaper energy beams mid-flight. The interaction created cascade failures throughout the enemy weapon systems, turning their own power against them. Reaper ships that had been charging devastating attacks suddenly found their energy grids overloading in spectacular explosions of stolen technology. "Direct hit on Reaper Formation Alpha 7, reported Weapons Officer Chen from her station aboard the TCS Defiance. "Their entire power grid is cycling through feedback loops." Admiral Rivera watched from his command ship as the impossible became reality. Human weapons, based on Zephyrian principles but enhanced by human ingenuity, were actually working against an enemy that had seemed invincible. But he knew this was just the beginning. "All ships implement Battle Plan Maelstrom," Rivera commanded. "Show them how humans really fight." What followed was unlike any space battle in recorded history. Humanity didn't try to match the Reapers' overwhelming firepower or their massive ships. Instead, they fought like the guerrilla descendants of every human conflict, using speed, deception, and tactics that defied conventional military doctrine. Commander Sarah Chen, now leading a squadron of fast attack ships from Kepler 442b, initiated the first phase. Her ships dove into the Reaper formation using modified Zephyrian engines that made them nearly impossible to track. They struck at weak points identified by analyzing the technological patchwork of Reaper hulls, then vanished before return fire could be coordinated. "Target their energy collectors," Chen transmitted to her squadron. "Those things are holding their jury-rigged systems together." Human fighters swarmed around Reaper capital ships like angry insects, using their superior maneuverability to stay in blind spots while targeting critical junctions between stolen technologies. The Reapers had never faced an enemy that understood the weaknesses of their own construction methods. Meanwhile, Kepler Station unleashed its secret weapon. The massive installation had been built around a Zephyrian harmonic core, but human engineers had modified it beyond recognition. Instead of the gentle resonance frequencies the Zephyrians used for construction and healing, the humans had weaponized the technology to create destructive interference patterns. The station's main cannon fired a beam of pure harmonic discord at the largest Reaper ship. The energy struck the patchwork hull and began spreading through the stolen technologies like a virus. Systems that had been forced to work together through Reaper engineering started fighting each other as their fundamental frequencies clashed. "Captain," Elena Vasquez watched from the station's command center as the kilometer-long Reaper ship began tearing itself apart from the inside. "That's for every civilization you destroyed," she whispered. But the Reapers were adapting faster than expected. Their ships began implementing counter-harmonics, using technology stolen from previous conquests to create shields against the human weapons. What had been overwhelming victories in the first hour became brutal, slugging matches as both sides learned each other's capabilities. The battle entered its second phase when the Reapers deployed their most feared weapon, the consumption beam, the massive energy projector, on their flagship charged up with power, drawn from a dozen different technologies, creating a lance of destructive force that could disintegrate matter at the molecular level. The beam struck the defense platform designated Station Echo. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire platform simply ceased to exist, consumed so completely that not even debris remained. 3,000 human defenders vanished in an instant. "All units, evasive maneuvers," Rivera commanded, but he knew their defensive positions were now untenable. The Reapers had shown they could destroy any fixed installation. With their consumption technology, that's when humanity played their final card. Hidden throughout the battle, Zone were devices that no human had ever wanted to build. Quantum mines based on the most dangerous theories in Zephyrian science. The peaceful aliens had developed the technology for scientific research but had never dreamed of weaponizing it. Humans had no such qualms. Dr. Wong's voice crackled across the command network from his position on the research vessel Galileo. "Admiral, the quantum mines are armed and ready. But I need to warn you, once we detonate these, there's no going back. We're talking about controlled tiers in space-time itself." Rivera looked at the tactical display. Humanity was losing. Despite their initial success, the Reapers were adapting and overwhelming human defenses through sheer numbers and firepower. Half the defensive fleet was already destroyed, and the Reapers hadn't even committed their reserve forces yet. "Do it," Rivera ordered. "Detonate all mines on my mark." The Reapers pressed their attack, confident that human resistance was collapsing. Their massive ships moved into optimum firing positions, preparing to finish the battle with a coordinated barrage that would shatter the remaining human forces. They never saw the quantum mines coming. "All mines. Detonate now," Rivera commanded. Across the battle zone, tiers in reality itself opened like hungry mouths. The quantum explosions didn't just destroy matter. They created localized spaces where the laws of physics became suggestions. Reaper ships caught in the detonation zone simply fell out of normal space-time, existing in quantum superposition until their probability waves collapsed into nothingness. The largest mine had been positioned directly in the path of the Reaper flagship. When it detonated, the consumption beam that had seemed so unstoppable bent back on itself, creating a feedback loop that consumed the weapon that had fired it. The kilometer-long ship folded in on itself like origami made of light, disappearing into a quantum void of its own making. In the space of 30 seconds, humanity had eliminated nearly a third of the Reaper fleet using weapons that violated several fundamental laws of physics. The remaining Reaper ships found themselves scattered across local space, their formation shattered, their command structure in chaos. But the battle was far from over. The Reapers had suffered their first major defeat in centuries, and their response would be unlike anything humanity had yet faced. As the surviving alien ships regrouped for a counterattack, long-range sensors detected something that made every human commander's blood run cold. The main Reaper fleet, the one they thought was still months away, had arrived early. Thousands of ships were dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, their hulls bristling with technologies stolen from dozens of conquered civilizations. The real war was just beginning. The arrival of the main Reaper fleet changed everything. Where the advance force had been merely overwhelming, the primary armada was apocalyptic. Ships the size of asteroids emerged from hyperspace, their hulls crafted from the bones of dead worlds and powered by the dying screams of extinct civilizations. Admiral Rivera stood in the holographic command center of his flagship, surrounded by the ghostly images of every surviving human commander. The quantum mine victory had bought them time, but the cost had been devastating. Half of humanity's defensive fleet was gone, and now they faced an enemy force 10 times larger than what they had just barely defeated. "Status report," Rivera demanded, his voice steady despite the impossible odds. Commander Vasquez spoke first from Kepler Station. "We have 18 major platforms still operational, but our quantum mine arsenal is exhausted. The Reapers have learned to detect the quantum signatures, so that trick won't work twice." Captain Sarah Chen's weathered face appeared in the projection, speaking from her fast attack squadron. "My ships are still combat capable, but Admiral, we're looking at over 3,000 enemy vessels. Even if we had our full fleet, the math doesn't add up." Dr. Wong materialized in the display from his research vessel, his expression a mixture of exhaustion and desperate inspiration. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the Reaper technology signatures. There's something we missed in our initial assessment. These aren't just random collections of stolen tech. There's a pattern, a central nervous system that coordinates all their disparate technologies." Rivera leaned forward. "Explain." "The Reapers use something called a nexus core," Wong continued, data streaming around his image. "It's how they make incompatible technologies work together. Every ship has one, but the primary nexus is aboard their command vessel. If we could disrupt that core, the entire fleet would lose coordination," Rivera finished. "Their stolen technologies would start fighting each other instead of working together." "Exactly. But Admiral, the command ship is in the center of their formation. protected by layers of defensive screens and hundreds of escort vessels. Getting close enough would be suicide. Rivera studied the tactical display, watching the massive Reaper fleet assume battle formation. Their movements were precise, coordinated, unstoppable. But somewhere in that armada was a single point of failure, and humans had always been good at finding weak spots. All commanders implement contingency plan Omega, Rivera announced. The holographic images around him shifted as his officers accessed the classified battle plan that no one had wanted to use. Plan Omega was humanity's final gambit, conceived in the darkest hours after the Zephyrian evacuation. It required sacrificing everything to achieve a single objective. Every ship, every station, every human life would be committed to creating one impossible shot at victory. Captain Chen's expression hardened as she read the plan. Admiral, this calls for ramming attacks against superior forces. We'll be throwing away lives. The alternative is extinction, Rivera replied. Not just for us, but for every civilization in this galaxy. The Reapers won't stop with humanity. They'll hunt down the Zephyrians, consume every refugee fleet, every hidden colony. This is where we make our stand. The Reaper fleet began its final approach, moving with the inexorable confidence of predators who had never faced effective resistance. Their formation was perfect, their coordination flawless, their weapons charged for maximum destruction. They had no idea what humanity was capable of when truly desperate. The battle began with what appeared to be a conventional human attack. Fast squadrons led by Sarah Chen struck at the Reaper flanks, drawing defensive fire and forcing the alien ships to adjust their formation. It looked like standard tactical doctrine, the kind of maneuver any military commander would recognize, but this was merely the first movement in humanity's symphony of destruction. As the Reapers repositioned to counter the flank attacks, they exposed a gap in their defensive screen. Commander Vasquez immediately exploited the opening, launching every available fighter and bomber from Kepler Station in a massive wave assault. The small craft swarmed toward the Reaper line, their pilots knowing this was a one-way mission. The Reapers responded with devastating firepower, vaporizing human fighters by the dozens. But for every ship they destroyed, 2 more slipped through their defenses. The human pilots weren't trying to survive the mission. They were trying to get close enough to deliver their payloads. Each fighter carried a modified Zephyrian harmonic resonator, programmed with the frequency signatures Dr. Wong had identified in the Reaper Nexus cores. The devices weren't powerful enough to destroy the massive alien ships, but they didn't need to be. They just needed to create enough interference to disrupt local coordination. One by one, Reaper ships began experiencing system failures as their stolen technologies started conflicting with each other. Weapons fired at random intervals, shields fluctuated, engines produced uncontrolled thrust vectors. The perfect formation began to waver as individual ships struggled with cascading malfunctions. Phase 2, execute, Rivera commanded. The human capital ships, led by Rivera's own flagship, charged directly into the confused Reaper formation. It was tactical insanity, pitting smaller human vessels against ships 10 times their size. But humanity wasn't fighting for victory in the traditional sense. They were fighting to create a path. The TCS Defiance, Admiral Rivera's flagship, led the charge toward the center of the Reaper formation. Enemy fire tore through her shields and armor, but her crew kept fighting even as sections of the ship vented atmosphere into space. Behind her, every remaining human capital ship followed, absorbing punishment that should have destroyed them instantly. But human ships had been built tough, enhanced with Zephyrian technology and human stubbornness. They kept fighting long past the point where any reasonable species would have surrendered, their crews manning damaged stations and routing power through backup systems that had backups of their own. Admiral, we've lost main engines, reported his tactical officer. Hull breach on decks 7 through 12. Then we use the attitude thrusters, Rivera replied calmly. Keep us moving toward that command ship. The Defiance limped through the Reaper formation, her hull scarred and smoking, but her weapons still firing. Around her, the other human ships followed her example, trading their lives for every meter of progress toward the enemy command vessel. That's when the Reapers made their fatal mistake. Seeing the apparently desperate human charge, they consolidated their formation to protect their command ship. The movement was tactically sound, bringing their maximum firepower to bear on the human attack, but it also brought their ships closer together, within range of humanity's final weapon. Dr. Wong's research vessel Galileo had remained hidden in the sensor shadow of a destroyed Reaper ship, unnoticed in the chaos of battle. Now, as the enemy fleet clustered around their command vessel, Wong activated his masterpiece. The device wasn't based on Zephyrian technology or human engineering. It was based on something far more dangerous: pure human spite. Wong had taken the harmonic resonance principles and inverted them, creating not harmony but discord on a massive scale. The chaos generator, as Wong had named it, fired a pulse of pure entropic energy into the heart of the Reaper formation. Every stolen technology aboard every ship suddenly found itself fighting against every other system. Weapons turned on their own ships, shields inverted to crush the vessels they were meant to protect. Engines exploded in carefully controlled reactions. The Reaper command ship, with its massive Nexus core, became the epicenter of technological civil war. Systems that had been forced to work together through millennia of careful integration suddenly remembered why they were incompatible. The kilometer-long vessel began tearing itself apart as dozens of different technologies tried to operate according to their original specifications. But even as their command structure collapsed, the Reapers weren't finished. Automated systems took over, continuing the attack even as the fleet devolved into chaos. Damaged Reaper ships continued firing, their weapons systems operating independently of any central control. It was going to be enough to finish the human fleet. Admiral Rivera watched his tactical display as the final calculations played out. Humanity had struck a devastating blow against their enemies, but it wouldn't be enough to save them. That's when the impossible happened. Long-range sensors detected massive hyperspace signatures approaching the battle zone. Ships were emerging from faster-than-light travel, hundreds of them, their energy signatures achingly familiar. The Zephyrians had returned. The Zephyrian fleet emerged from hyperspace like avenging angels, their ships gleaming with the pearl-like luminescence that had once brought hope to a dying mining colony. But these weren't the same peaceful vessels that had evacuated months ago. These ships bore armor plating and weapon arrays, their gentle curves now hardened for war. At the head of the formation was the Stellar Harmony, Navigator Lirelai's ship, now transformed into a battle cruiser that somehow maintained its elegant beauty while bristling with advanced weaponry. But it wasn't alone. Behind it came hundreds of Zephyrian vessels, and with them, ships from a dozen other species. Admiral Rivera stared at his tactical display in amazement. "Communications, get me Navigator Lirelai immediately." The holographic display shimmered to life, revealing Lirelai's familiar form. But the Zephyrian had changed. Their skin showed new coloration patterns. Deep blues and purples that Rivera had learned indicated determination and righteous anger. When Lirelai spoke, their melodic voice carried undertones of steel. "Admiral Rivera, we have come to honor an old debt. No species should face extinction alone, especially not those who would fight to protect their friends. Lirelai, you evacuated. You got your people to safety. You don't owe us anything more." The Zephyrian skin shifted to warm golden hues, the color Rivera remembered from their first meeting decades ago. "Admiral, you misunderstand the nature of friendship. When the Reapers are finished consuming human space, they will come for us. When they destroy every human colony, they will hunt down our refugee fleets. Your fight has always been our fight. We were simply too afraid to see it." As Lirelai spoke, the tactical display updated with new contacts. The ships accompanying the Zephyrians bore the insignia of species Rivera had only heard about in reports: the crystalline architects, the energy-based luminari, the plant-like Verdani collective. Each species had their own reasons for fearing the Reapers, their own losses to avenge. "The galaxy has watched the Void Reapers consume civilization after civilization," Lirelai continued. "We told ourselves that evacuation was wisdom, that survival was victory. But humanity has shown us something we had forgotten. Sometimes the only way to truly survive is to fight for something greater than yourself." The Reaper fleet, still reeling from the effects of Dr. Wong's chaos generator, tried to reform their battle lines to face this new threat. But their coordination was shattered, their command structure in ruins. Individual ships fought desperately, but they were no longer the unstoppable armada that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. What followed was the largest space battle in galactic history. The combined Allied fleet struck the disrupted Reapers with weapons and tactics from a dozen different civilizations. each species contributing their unique strengths to the fight. The architects deployed geometric shields that redirected enemy fire into perfect mathematical patterns, creating defensive formations that were as beautiful as they were effective. The luminary phased in and out of normal space, striking with energy weapons that bypassed conventional armor. The Verdani used biological ships that could repair themselves in real time, growing new weapons and defenses as the battle progressed. But it was the combination of human tactics with Zephyrian technology that proved most devastating. The peaceful aliens had spent months studying human military doctrine, learning how their harmonious technologies could be weaponized without losing their fundamental nature. Commander Sarah Chen found herself fighting alongside Zephyrian pilots whose ships moved like liquid music through space. Their combined squadrons wove between Reaper defenses with an elegance that would have been impossible for either species alone. Human squadron leader, adjust your attack vector by 12 degrees, came a melodic voice over the comm. The harmonic resonance will be optimal for disrupting their shield matrix. Chen followed the Zephyrians' guidance and watched in amazement as her squadron's weapons created interference patterns that collapsed an entire Reaper ship's defenses. The aliens' mathematical precision combined with human unpredictability made them nearly unstoppable. Dr. Wong worked frantically aboard the Galileo, coordinating with Zephyrian scientists to refine his chaos technology. The peaceful aliens had found ways to make his destructive invention more precise, turning it from a weapon of mass destruction into a surgical tool for disrupting specific technologies. The Reapers are adapting faster than we anticipated, Wong reported to Admiral Rivera. They're installing isolation protocols to prevent cascade failures. But the Zephyrian modifications should allow us to target their nexus cores directly. Commander Vasquez watched from Kepler Station as the tide of battle slowly turned. The Reapers were still dangerous, their individual ships powerful enough to destroy any single opponent. But they had lost their greatest advantage, coordination. Without their unified command structure, they fought as individual predators rather than a cohesive pack. The battle's turning point came when Navigator Lyreley led a combined strike force directly at the Reaper command vessel. The massive ship was still functional despite the chaos that had consumed its fleet, its ancient technologies somehow managing to resist the entropic effects that had crippled other vessels. All ships, target the primary nexus core, Lyreley transmitted. Humanity has shown us that some things are worth any sacrifice. The strike force dove into the heart of the Reaper formation, absorbing devastating fire from defensive systems that had been collecting power for millennia. Human ships provided covering fire, while Zephyrian vessels used their superior shields to protect the more fragile Allied ships. One by one, the escort vessels fell, but the core of the formation pressed on. Admiral Rivera watched from his damaged flagship as the final phase of the battle played out. The combined fleet had fought with courage and skill, but the cost had been enormous. Half the Allied ships were destroyed or crippled, and the survivors were running low on ammunition and power. But they had achieved something that no previous enemy of the Reapers had managed. They had reached the command ship's core, Dr. Wong's final chaos generator, enhanced by Zephyrian harmonic technology and powered by the combined energy output of a dozen Allied ships, fired directly into the Reaper command vessel's nexus core. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The two ancient technologies that the Reapers had forced to work together for millennia suddenly remembered their fundamental incompatibilities. The command ship didn't just malfunction, it underwent a technological revolution as every stolen system tried to reassert its original parameters. The kilometer-long vessel folded in on itself, creating a cascade failure that spread through quantum entanglement to every ship in the Reaper fleet. Across the battle zone, Reaper vessels simply stopped working. Their weapons fell silent, their engines shut down, their shields collapsed. The unstoppable armada that had consumed 17 civilizations became nothing more than floating scrap metal and confused aliens who had forgotten how to build anything for themselves. The galaxy's greatest predators had finally met their match in the combined fury of species who refused to let their friends face extinction alone. But the war was far from over. In the silence that followed the battle, long-range sensors detected something that chilled every surviving commander. More Reaper fleets were approaching from distant galaxies, drawn by the quantum signatures of the battle. The victory had been decisive, but it had also announced to every Reaper faction in the universe that someone had finally learned how to fight them. The real test of the Alliance was yet to come. 5 years after the Battle of Kepler Gate, the galaxy was a different place. The victory over the first Reaper fleet had become the catalyst for something unprecedented in galactic history. A true interspecies alliance built not on trade or convenience, but on friendship and mutual defense. Admiral Marcus Rivera, now bearing the title of Alliance Supreme Commander, stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, humanity's newest and most ambitious construction project. The massive installation floated in the space where the Reaper command ship had died, built partially from the recovered alien technologies but enhanced by the combined knowledge of 14 different species. The station itself was a testament to what cooperation could achieve. Zephyrian harmonic architecture created flowing spaces that promoted peace and creativity. Human engineering provided the robust structural framework that could withstand anything the universe threw at it. Architect crystalline matrices processed information at speeds that defied physics, while Verdani biological systems maintained atmospheric perfection throughout the massive structure. Admiral, we're receiving the final reports from the Outer Rim expeditions, reported Captain Sarah Chen, now serving as Rivera's chief of operations. At 85, she remained as sharp as ever, her mind enhanced by Zephyrian longevity treatments that had extended human lifespans by centuries. Rivera accepted the data tablet, scanning through reports that would have been impossible to imagine just years ago. The Alliance had launched exploration fleets to the furthest reaches of known space, hunting down remaining Reaper factions before they could rebuild their strength. But they weren't just seeking out enemies. They were searching for survivors. The galaxy was full of species that had hidden from the Reapers for centuries, civilizations that had retreated to marginal worlds or deep space installations to avoid detection. The Alliance was finding them one by one and offering them something the galaxy hadn't seen in millennia: hope. Dr. James Wong, now bearing the honorary title of Chief Science Advisor to the Alliance, emerged from the station's research levels. His hair had gone completely gray, but his eyes still held the spark of scientific curiosity that had created the weapons that saved them all. The latest batch of refugees from the Andromeda Spiral have been processed, Wong reported. 43 different species, all with unique technologies and perspectives. The Kythera delegation is particularly interesting. Their biomechanical fusion technology could revolutionize ship construction. Rivera nodded, but his attention was focused on something else. Through the observation windows, he could see Navigator Lyrelai's ship approaching the station. The Zephyrian had become the Alliance's chief diplomat, traveling between systems to coordinate the ever-growing coalition of species united against the Reaper threat. But these weren't diplomatic visits anymore. 3 months ago, long-range sensors had detected something that confirmed everyone's worst fears. A massive Reaper fleet was approaching from the galactic core, larger than anything they had faced before. This wasn't a single faction seeking revenge. This was the main body of the Reaper civilization, ancient beyond measure and angry beyond reason. Lyrelai materialized in the station's central holographic chamber, their form accompanied by representatives from the other founding species of the Alliance. The architect delegate appeared as a shifting geometric pattern of impossible beauty. The luminary ambassador manifested as controlled plasma, shaped into a vaguely humanoid form. The Verdani representative grew directly from the station's floor, a flowering tree that somehow conveyed intelligence and purpose. "Friends," Lyrelai began, their voice carrying new harmonics that Rivera had learned indicated deep concern. "Our long-range monitoring stations have confirmed the approach of the primary Reaper fleet. 3 million vessels, technologies spanning galactic history, commanded by intelligences that have consumed entire star clusters." The holographic display showed the approaching armada in all its terrifying glory. Ships the size of small moons moved in perfect formation, their hulls incorporating technologies from hundreds of extinct civilizations. At the center of the formation was something that defied description. A structure so massive it was visible on galactic-scale maps. A mobile space station built from the remnants of dead stars. "How long do we have?" Rivera asked. 6 months until the advanced scouts reach our outer systems, the architect delegate replied, their geometric form shifting through complex mathematical patterns. 1 year until the main fleet arrives. Rivera studied the data, his tactical mind automatically calculating force ratios and defensive scenarios. The numbers were sobering. Even with all their allies, even with all their captured Reaper technology, the Alliance could field perhaps 50,000 ships against 3 million. It should have been hopeless, but humanity had taught the galaxy something important about hope. "All right," Rivera said, his voice carrying the quiet confidence that had seen him through decades of impossible situations. "Let's show them what we've learned." The next 6 months saw the largest military buildup in galactic history. Every species in the Alliance contributed according to their abilities. Human shipyards worked around the clock, turning out vessels that combined the best aspects of a dozen different technologies. Zephyrian harmonic manufacturing created weapons and shields of unprecedented effectiveness. The architects designed defensive installations that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But the real preparation wasn't technological, it was psychological. The Alliance had become something more than a military coalition. It had become a family, bound together by shared struggle and mutual respect. Species that had never even known of each other's existence now worked side by side, sharing knowledge and culture as freely as they shared weapons and ships. Captain Sarah Chen, commanding the Fast Attack Squadron based on Kepler 442b, watched her mixed-species crews train together with weapons that shouldn't have been possible. Human pilots flew ships with Zephyrian harmonic cores, their minds linked to navigation systems designed by the architects. Verdani biological computers processed targeting data, while Luminari energy beings provided real-time tactical analysis. "You know," she said to her executive officer, a young Zephyrian named Melodic of Distant Stars, 50 years ago, "I was ready to die alone on a forgotten mining world. Now I'm preparing to fight alongside friends I never imagined could exist." Melodic's skin shifted to warm golden hues, the color Zephyrians use to express deep affection. "Captain Chen, your species taught us that survival isn't just about preserving life. It's about preserving what makes life worth living." When the primary Reaper fleet finally arrived, they found something they had never encountered in their millions of years of existence: a galaxy united against them. The Alliance had turned every system into a fortress, every planet into a weapons platform, every species into soldiers fighting for something greater than themselves. The war that followed lasted 3 years and reshaped the fundamental nature of the galaxy. The Reapers fought with the accumulated power of countless consumed civilizations, but the Alliance fought with something the ancient predators had never understood: the power of friendship freely given and fiercely defended. Humanity's gift to the galaxy wasn't just their tactical innovations or their stubborn refusal to surrender. It was their ability to see potential friends in every species they met, to build bridges across the vast gulfs that separated different forms of life. They had taken a galaxy of isolated, frightened civilizations and forged them into something that could stand against any threat. The final battle took place in the void between galaxies, where the last Reaper command fortress made its final stand. The massive structure, built from the cores of dead stars, fought with weapons that could ignite suns and tear holes in space itself. But arrayed against it was the combined might of over 200 species, each contributing their unique gifts to the fight. When the ancient fortress finally fell, its destruction creating a new nebula visible from half the galaxy, the Reaper threat ended forever. The predators who had terrorized the cosmos for eons were gone, their ships converted into tools for exploration and construction, their knowledge integrated into the growing wisdom of the Alliance. Navigator Lyrelai stood with Admiral Rivera on the deck of their command ship as they watched the new nebula bloom across the stars. The Zephyrian skin showed colors Rivera had never seen before, patterns that spoke of joy too profound for words. "Admiral," Lyrelai said softly, "my people have a saying. Translated into your language, it means the harmony of friendship echoes across eternity. But I think your species has taught us something even more beautiful." "What's that?" Rivera asked. "Mankind never forgets a favor," Lyrelai replied, their voice carrying harmonics of deep gratitude. "And when you remember friendship, your revenge can indeed shake entire worlds. But more importantly, your friendship can rebuild them." The galaxy had learned that lesson well. In the years that followed, the Alliance grew not through conquest but through invitation. Species after species joined the coalition. drawn not by fear or necessity but by the simple recognition